What's going on? Can everybody hear me? Let's see.
What's up, man?
Hey, I don't see you yet.
Can you
There you are.
you don't see me yet? Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me okay though?
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Cool.
You can hear me?
Very good. Yeah, we already got 70 people plus just looking at our faces.
99,
Oh
104.
crap. It's okay. Let me get somewhere where there's way better lighting because this lighting in here sucks and I want everyone to see my ugly face. There we go.
Someone asked,
Much better. Yeah.
anything from Lund for the 18 plus EcoBoost? I assume they're talking about the Mustang, and I'll get to it when I get time, but there's no plans right now. The market
Hell
is
no.
so small. All
Sell
right.
it.
Yeah.
So what are we going to start talking about? We're going to start going with the obvious stuff with GT500. Everyone is wanting us to talk about. People are asking if we already got tunes for it. Hell, the car's
I
not even
know.
out yet, and people, you got the tune for it? Why didn't they put a 10 or 80 in it? So what are your impressions? The GT500 was announced. It kind of was what we thought it was going to be. It wasn't really anything shocking, and they really didn't give up much info. But in terms of your impressions as to, not forget the looks and everything, but what the car could be and the potential, what were your impressions on the new GT500 coming up?
So I know a lot of people hated on how it looked. I personally think it looks pretty cool. The headlights don't really bother me. None of that really matters to me. I think what they did with the functional aspects of the bumper and the arrow to most of the bumper is for cooling. It reminds me of the CTSV bumper where they have the intercoolers mounted right behind the bumper for the Supercharger, and there's one on each side. But on Ford's website, I saw it mentions there's 6 different heat exchangers, and I meant to say heat exchanger, not intercooler. Um, and that's pretty cool to me. So that means they're really focused on trying to keep the heat down on the blower. Um, so that stood out. The wheels are pretty cool. Um, Obviously, we've all seen pictures of the Supercharger. There's nothing new there. Um, the, the the disappointing thing about the release was they didn't talk about performance too much. There's rumor that it's gone, the 10.8 at 133, 134. Um, so does that match the power level they're talking about? Well, we all know their horsepower level is crank rating or flywheel, and
Right.
they're saying 700 plus. I have a good source that it's not making much more than 700. So we're talking low 700s to the crank, which is low 600s to the tire. So,
Pretty much what a Roush RS3 made back in 2015, something like that.
right. Someone asked, oh, that's Mario. You guys know any engine specs yet? I've been told it's similar to the Illuminator. So it has Manley H-beams or something similar. It's definitely stronger than what's in the Gen 2 and Gen 3 Coyotes, which have the same rods. Um, so it'll handle, there's Illuminators out there handling 1,000 to the tire.
Thousand.
Yeah,
Right.
non-sleeved, and we've got some that we've tuned making over 1,100. So I think if it does come with a built short block like that, then the potential is going to be pretty cool to, have a reliable 1,000 plus on decent quality fuel, not 93 octane.
But yeah, exactly. But John, aren't you afraid of the markup? Good luck getting that without a $50,000 markup or
Yeah,
getting one.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter.
It doesn't matter. We want to be one of the first ones to have one, and we want to be right out the gate swinging hard with it. The cool thing about it will be it's basically a Coyote engine. We know those well. There's not really much on it that's GT500 except for a supercharger. Another thing a lot of people are griping about is that it could be over 4,200 pound curb weight. So, oh, you're buffering. Are you there? Are you back?
Am I back? Yeah, I guess my Metro PCS bill, my Metro PCS and my T-Mobile got canceled. No, I was hooking up to the Wi-Fi because the streaming was coming through a little weird, so I hooked up to the Wi-Fi in the house. Yeah, okay, good.
So I was saying the curb weight I don't think is going to be 4,200 pounds. I think that was wrong. If you backtrack, their estimated mile an hour times per quarter mile, it's probably 3,900 with the driver. So it's really no different than a GT350 now, or a base model S550. So,
right.
Granted, is that heavy? Yeah, but it's no Hellcat. So.
Yeah. What does a Hellcat actually weigh? 42, like legit 42, 43? Because they're big. Anyone never been in a Hellcat or any Charger or Challenger, it's a big car. It's like a flying couch, really. It's very
I think
big.
someone in here made a comment, but I think they're 4,300 without driver. So you go toss,
right.
An average guy is 180, 200. So.
Right. So now the question that's going to come up inevitably is, are you happy that it does not have a 10R80 in it?
Are you happy that it doesn't have a 10R80 in it?
I'm so happy. I'm so happy because unfortunately, you know how social media is, right? One car goes 880s and the 10R80 is the savior. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And then the aftermarket hasn't yet caught up like we were talking about in previous videos. And people just keep throwing more and more power at it. And they started, having engine failures, transmission slipping. You couldn't make a wide open throttle pull on the dyno in seventh gear. The clutches were holding. And they were going, well, what happened? What happened? It must be the tune because this guy down in Texas is going 880s. And I'm so happy it doesn't have a 10R80 in it because if you've ever driven, I've never driven, but I've been a passenger in GTRs, Porsche GT3s, and I'm just like, holy crap, it is unbelievable, completely different. You get that direct drivetrain feeling, none of that slush-o-matic. On diesel, you get that engine braking just like a manual. It's completely different, and I can't wait. Now, as far as you know, has Tremec ever released a DCT anywhere in any vehicle?
I don't know off the top of my head. I hate to bring it up, but we have a Fiesta in our stable, and
you're right, we do.
It was my sister's car. She's over in Europe, so she's not using it, and it's got a DCT transmission, and it's a piece of junk. And I don't know if Tremec, has made it, but obviously it's for a passenger car, and it's had a lot of issues. I don't know if they're mechanical or calibration related, but Senior's obviously in here. He can chime in on what it does, but I haven't heard of anything. Now, looking at the cutaway of the transmission, it looks pretty stout. It reminds me of a regular manual gearbox, but then it's got this converter-looking like thing up front, but it's actually two clutches, and it looks like they're wet clutches.
Right. Yeah, I saw hydraulic fluid behind it sort of squeezing on everything.
And there's a video on YouTube that Tremec did of a DCT transmission, and it looks like it is very similar, and they talk about the functionality. It's something that we can maybe post tomorrow, and it's something that everybody should watch just to get a little education because it talks about what each clutch does. There's also another video, it's older, of a GTR GR6 transmission, and I believe Shep Trans is narrating it, and he's talking about the 50 different parts that you have to replace in it for it to handle a bunch of power. So,
oh my God, I could not imagine.
It's very interesting because he goes through, he kind of starts at the base power of what people break, mostly from launching those cars, and he just works his way up the power level on what needs to be done. It's very interesting to see it all ripped apart. And people will say planetary transmission is just as quick. Well, if you look at there's basically less hydraulics in this transmission. There's only
Right.
two clutches, and I believe one is used for even gears and the other is used for odd gears. And it's obviously one has to come off the shift, much like your foot would when you're shifting. But
Right.
there's only one clutch that's off or on at any one point in time, so it's much quicker than a planetary gearbox where you have multiple clutches moving around, there's fluid going up and down, there's a valve body that it's all got to pass through. So you add up all that time, and that's where they get that 100 milliseconds. Now, when they say 100 milliseconds, does that mean it's going to shift 100 milliseconds? I believe the actual mechanics move that quick, but Ford has already talked about doing a bunch of torque reduction. And
Spark cut,
and
all
everyone's
that
like,
crap.
what's torque reduction? Well, you could do
Oh.
throttle cut, which they don't usually do. It's usually with timing, and
Right.
for all the guys that like to look at their own data logs, it's torque source 7, and it'll pull spark on the shift, and we can sort of manipulate how much it does, but it's a torque target. So 6R80 stuff, most of the time it gets lightened up for upshifting. Downshifting, we leave it because a lot of guys don't like that hard Mack truck feel when they downshift. Some do.
Right.
And you got to leave it on for rev match downshifting because it uses the torque reduction to do rev matching to give it that. It's almost like an illusion, like it's in neutral, and you're rev matching with your foot. Now this trans obviously will do that better because it's like a manual. Why are they doing that? Well, it's for feel, but it is an aggressive car, so. The other thing is it's on a street tire, and you have a trans that shifts so fast, it's going to be like someone no-lift shifting in a manual transmission. And if anybody in here has been in a car where you no-lift shift it, it's fast. And if you don't have a tire on it, it'll break the tire loose because it's shocking the drivetrain. And if nothing breaks in the drivetrain, the final thing is going to be the tire to pavement. Yep.
Tire spin.
So
Right.
I think we're going to...
It would be interesting to see what this car does for a 1.2 without traction control and no spark and no torque reduction. It would just blaze.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would just absolutely blaze 1, 2, and maybe 3, depending on how much wheel spin you'd have if you turn off all the torque
If it doesn't
reduction.
break anything in the transmission. Now, I don't, looking at the cutaway, I don't think it will. I don't know if Ben Calamer's in here, but he's probably the guy that would know. Will the gears handle it? Will the synchros like it? Because it all has that same stuff. There's forks that move everything. Are the forks going to like extra speed to be moved quick? I know in the GTR sometimes the forks break. If we go shutting all that off, which shouldn't be hard to do, is it going to be something that every guy is going to want? Probably not, because the guy that goes to the track and has no torque reduction, he's got the Pilot Sport tires on there, he goes around a turn and it shifts, it's going to send him sideways into the dirt. So for drag racing, I think if you have a drag radial on it or whatever, you probably can't fit anything smaller than a 19-inch wheel on the back with how big the brakes are. So that's another thing. Guys are going to,
The brakes are big. The brakes
what tire
are big.
do I run? Yeah.
Every single time someone tells me what tire do I, for drag racing, right? What tire should I run? I always go to the most aggressive drag radial I can think of, but they counter with, well, I drive it every day. And I'm like, well, the stock ass tire, because at the end of the day, you want wear, you want grip, you want this, you want that. I mean, at the end of the day, what do you want to do with the car? Not a lot of people that buy this car are going to road race it. Why? Because most GT500 owners, no offense, guys, they can't drive, right? They just want to have a Shelby. But if you want a badass tire, I think Ford spent millions of dollars developing this car. And if they choose a Pilot Sport Cup 2 or whatever ends up on it, run that, unless you're going to go to the track and then run a drag radial. That's probably the best advice any of us can give you. We're tuners. We're not going to tell you, we don't work at Discount Tire and tell you what tire is best for you based on sales. We're just going to tell you, here's a tune and see you later.
Yep. Someone
just
asked, NA Stang 87XX, he says, is it an advantage of DCT no or very little drivetrain shock because the next shifted gear is spinning right in sync with when the shift happens tends to be clutches.
Well, that's same as an auto,
yeah,
isn't
I would
it?
say go look up a decent powered GTR on going down the track. Granted, it is all-wheel drive, so when it shocks the drivetrain on that, it's sending the power to 4 tires, not 2. But look at how the suspension jumps. And if you look at any of those guys launching those cars, they porpoise really hard going down the track. I mean, every shift is just like, you know.
You have to explain to them. I found out with my very vast social media experience, what does porpoising mean? Because they're
Think
going to
of a
go
dolphin flapping in the water. It's that shock.
the undulating,
yeah, it's
exactly.
the typical IRS wheel hop look, and those have IRS on
Right.
them. So someone said drag radials, slicks. Slicks probably. I mean, slicks and IRS is like bread and butter. I don't know why we don't do that. I think it's because drag radials always net a quicker 60-foot, and you know, granted, a slick on our blue car may dead hook. It won't dead hook. It'll hook more consistently on different track surfaces, but definitely less part breakage.
Yeah, the prep has to be the prep has to be pretty on point for a big, or the tune, a little combination of everything. But I think there's a reason why people lay down a decent amount of glue when it comes to the big boy drag radial guys. They kind of need it. With the slick, you need a little wheel spin now, because now is the new GT500, John, a manual?
The shifter, circle, whatever you want to call that thing, the dial that is in a Ford GT, by the way, and I don't hear anybody griping about a Ford GT with a dial shifter.
Oh, well, you know, but that's different.
And I think it's a similar transmission. It's just transaxle because the engine's a mid-engine.
Right.
It says D and P on it, so it's an auto.
There you go. Because people are like, well, wait a minute. It's got gears, it's got synchros, and it's got forks. So is it an auto or is it a manual? And then a lot of people, look, if it can shift itself, it's an auto, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
what about what's that one that guys run?
Automatics have sport mode. They're not manual.
What's it, a Liberty that the big boys run? Like a 6-speed.
Yeah, but that shifts itself too.
Right, it's all air shifted or CO2 shifted, and that's considered
that's a manual.
But it's automatically shifted, right?
It's automatically shifted, yeah. So it's an auto manual. It's a manual auto.
Yeah, we'll come up with a better word. It's DCT.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, we're going to get one, period, regardless of the dealer markup, because we're not just, who cares, right? You're going to have to, you'll get your money back in tuning, you hope, right?
They always do.
But at the end of the day, yeah, exactly. That's what I say. I said, look, just get it. You're going to get, if you're good, you're going to get your money back in tuning, period. So at the end of the day, is Lund Racing going to road race this car? Because I remember you guys had a GT350 for a millisecond, and it saw the drag strip and never saw the road course. So are you guys going to potentially take this to a road course?
I don't think we will, because obviously we don't have one up in Pennsylvania. It would be fun to go take one to it, and obviously we're not drivers for that, but it'd be fun to learn a little bit more about it.
Right.
But would we need to do it to tailor our tuning a little bit to the market? It depends. I mean, everyone has a GT350 now, it seems, because they just keep making them. And the orders keep coming in for GT350s, and nobody road races it.
Nobody.
They buy them to go make tons of horsepower, and then they put the dyno sheet in the windshield and go to a car show. So
legit, and that is absolutely what they do. Every single GT350 that comes through, it's either a stock car with flex fuel or E85, or a Whipple supercharged GT350, or a ProCharge GT350. Yep. That's it. And they're not, they don't say, hey, I was at Sebring and my car got hot in lap 2. No, never. They just roll race, car show, do a little dig here and there, mess around, but I don't see any road race GT250, anything, even an R, come through saying or complaining about road racing. So I guess we're going to cater to the drag race audience, because honestly, that's America. That's drag race.
I think it'll be, if the trans holds up to the power and we can easily make 1,000 wheel, maybe not with the stock blower. Obviously, there's going to be a few blowers that are going to be available. They'll easily make 1,000 wheel with more boost. Will E85 work on a stock fuel system? I don't know. If it's anything like a GT350 fuel system and it's got the same pumps, it's going to need an upgrade. But let's say we throw a return at it and bigger injectors, and we can make 1,000 wheel. You can't really road race 1,000 wheel without different tires, you got to do stuff with the suspension. Granted, drag racing you have to do stuff with the suspension, but I think it's going to be a roll race car. I'm not going to say where the roll racing is going to happen, but it's where it's going to be. Put a drag rail on it, and it's going to be a killer on the street. I mean, roll racing.
Yeah, exactly. And I see, like Luke commented, y'all clearly haven't been to a road course. Plenty of GT350 show up. That's fine, but those cars are probably stock with a tune, and they don't complain about anything. They just go out there and have their fun. Most of the stuff that comes through our tuning queue that is modified is a supercharged GT350. Tell me how many supercharged, Luke, GT350s do you see on that road course? And I probably none, if anything, one or two, because they just like to tool around town, make some power, which they make power. That is, I think we have a GT350 up north right now with Whipple Gen 3 on it.
Yes.
Okay, and that's gonna you're looking to make 800 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it may struggle to make less than 800 with the pulley combo on it, and we're gonna try to dyno it sometime this week, and it's like 15 degrees outside, so the DA is like minus 8,000. So everything makes power right now.
So which cars are Senior and Cheryl gonna sell in order to buy this new GT500?
The Fiesta.
Right. I got to make room. You got to make room for one.
I don't know. He's in here. He can answer that question. I don't
think he's gonna sell any of them. You know, John. He's not gonna sell any of them.
I don't think we're selling any of them. We have an EcoBoost Mustang we'd like to get rid of.
That's for sale. Yeah, get that out of there. Yeah. Are we going to do anything with that? Are we going to try doing anything, or are we just going to say get it out of here?
I don't know. It's got a built motor in it. Has cams. And while I'm talking, I'm like losing interest in continuing to talk about it because I know,
oh my God,
if we go turn it up, it's just going to break. So, could we go run 10s with it? Yeah, but it doesn't do anything for me. We can go put the black car back to stock or NA and go run 10. So,
I think initially, and I'm not saying this because being cocky. I'm just going by history. I think we're going to be in competition with ourselves with the new GT500, right? So multiple shops or places are going to get one, and we'll have one. I'm sure Evo is going to have one right down the street from you guys and a couple of other dealers, and they're going to be like, hey, who's going to be the first to the 9s? Who's going to be the first to this, first to that? I think whoever has the most favorable weather will be the one that, gets to because 9s is going to be the goal, right? 9s is like the magic number for a new vehicle and that impresses you. 8s, now it's big boy stuff, turbo stuff. So, at the end of the day, do you think people like 4 Innovations and stuff like that has already kind of seen the cutouts of everything, and you think they're probably coming out with upgrades, or do you think the aftermarket will probably slack on this one like they slacked with the 10R80?
I don't think the transmission market will be there, definitely, because the 10R80 transmission market it's not there yet. And then, is it going to be fruitful for them to make it better? I don't know. The 10R80 could be gone in a few years. We don't know. The transmission, I think, will be a little bit off. Granted, you don't have as many clutches that you have to upgrade, so it's different.
Right.
I think all the other stuff, like a Gen 5 Whipple, should bolt right up. I don't think any modifications will have to be done. I think the fuel systems will all be the same because it's the same tank, so the hat will still drop in. I don't think there will be much to wait on there. The big thing will be pulleys for the blower. How far can you take the stock blower? How's the intercooling going to be? Is it going to suck? Are we going to have to take 6 heat exchangers out and put one big one in there. I don't even know how all that works.
Right.
It just kind of confuses me that you have it routing like that. So, yeah.
Is that basically like a 6-pass? If there's 6 of them, there's a 6-pass heat exchangers as opposed to triple pass or a dual pass or whatever the hell they call them. If you're going through 6 little ones, is it technically each one a little chamber it's going through? And,
yeah, I guess. Yeah, I just don't know how good the fin technology on it's going to be. Like the main ones you can see, I believe, are on either side, lower left and right, and it eats a lot of air. It looks like they did a good job with the design there. It's real open. I just don't know how efficient it's going to be. They're talking 12 pounds of boost, which isn't much. Everyone thinks that it's probably going to be 15-to-1 compression on 91 octane. So
right.
I've got a good source that says it's going to be 10.2 to 10.3. So
okay, so it's not an Illuminator XS then.
It's a different block than a GT350 block. So it's Voodoo based, but it's got better webbing and maybe some other tricks to help with strength. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be lower compression. So 12 pounds of boost and that compression with a 5.2 making, that power number, it's probably conservative. That's not bad considering 13, 14 Shelbys with the same boost level OEM on 9.5 to 1 or
I think so. 13, 14
so a little higher
GT500?
than the previous. It was a 1 point higher. And those made what stock? High 500?
High 500, 600, yeah.
So it's going to these may make low 600s just higher. So not bad. Considering it's smaller displacement and it has VCT. So.
Yeah, now the lack of direct injection, what do you think was their thought process now that you've kind of had basically a year or two experiencing the whole direct injection setup on GTs? Why do you think Ford went away from that on the new GT500?
Fitment of the supercharger, pretty sure. So they took direct injection, the benefit of it, to packaging, and they picked packaging over DI. So I think that kind of says a little bit something about the direct injection and its benefits to the performance side of the engine. It's not that much, and I'm personally not upset about it. If we could have gone either way, it wouldn't have mattered to me, but it doesn't matter. The thing that separates the men from the boys, though, with the calibration will be if there's no MAF. I'm pretty sure there won't be a MAF sensor. Is 100% speed density, and guys that aren't up to speed on EcoBoost tuning, we'll just use that. Even though 15 plus F-150 5 liters are all MAF. If you're not up to speed on what to do properly, then you're going to struggle making the transmission shift properly. So, and driving properly. If you don't understand how any of it works, it'll be a struggle. So everyone can use their fancy incorrect calculators in their super duper software that we've seen because it's not accurate at all, and it'll be a struggle, I think. So
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where you especially with the truck stuff, like a lot of people were kind of using files that were already out there, for lack of a better word, and piggybacking off of that, and you're like, okay, that's how they're getting away from it. But when the big stuff came in, that's when they struggled with, shifting and, harshness and everything and drivability. That's where, like you said, where the rubber met the road at that point. But yeah, I'm actually interested. I'd love to get a hold of a Ford engineer and say, why did you not use the Ford Performance Supercharger? Which was very interesting because they very much say Eaton 2.6. They are very adamant about saying the Eaton 2.6. And I go, interesting. When you look at it, it almost looks like something that Greg Kayasan, is that how you pronounce his last name? Yeah, it's almost like what he works on with ZR1. So, I'm sure he's very familiar with the layout, and I wonder why Ford, even though they're both front feed, This looks more like a Gen 5 Whipple or Edelbrock front feed than the Roush / Ford Performance side throttle body setup. So I wonder why they didn't do that. Obviously, they must have seen something, but I'm still curious as to why they didn't go ahead with that thrower.
We suspected that the IATs were a big problem on that, the Ford Performance on the Roush, and they are. So I've seen a few logs, one from a truck and from cars. The one truck comes out the gate, a 12-to-1 compression with 12 pounds of boost, and they actually have a lot of logic that they've baked in from that actually is on some EcoBoost for IAT management. So if the IATs get too high, they limit torque or load in this case, which is interesting that they're doing it on a supercharger. So they start closing the throttle at high RPM to lower the boost in order to keep the IAT. It's weird. So
that's how they limit load, by closing throttle?
So I tuned one and I took that out, and the IAT starts skyrocketing, and it's 170 degrees on the street after 2 fulls. So you think 12-to-1 compression, that boost on 93 octane, we're in Detonation City. So I don't care if it's got direct injection on it, it's going to have problems. And sure enough, the NOx sensor doesn't like it. So I think that they saw that in their testing, and they said this is not going to be sustainable for the aftermarket. So that big intercooler on the top, it's real thick. I wish it was a little wider for surface area, but it looks better than the Roush. I was talking to Greg over at Kong Performance, and he's very antsy about getting his hands on one because if anybody doesn't know, he used to work for Lund Racing and he had a side business for porting ZR1 superchargers and some CTSV, LT4 stuff, blah, blah, blah. He does a CNC port on them, which he used to hand port, turned his hand port into a CNC, which is awesome. And he's wanting to do the same thing on this supercharger, which for the class of the car being similar to a ZR1, all these guys want that OEM-like quality. They want to look in and see their reflection off the inside of the supercharger. So it looks real clean, real sharp. He's really he wants one, and I think he's not going to say anything, but I think he sees like there's a cutaway, and he's able to look at it and kind of, I got to see a different angle, but I think there's room. So, may not need a bigger throttle, maybe eventually, but, if these are speed density, we can run them open throttle body.
Open throttle body, exactly. Then we can be cool like the Australian boys where you just see the throttle body open and suck in whatever, rag, and make, power in terms of just, the cool factor, for lack of a better word. Now, the aftermarket it's going to be interesting. Now, did you look at the pulley configuration closely on the snout especially? Did you see what might look like some kind of one-way clutch thing going on? Did you see anything happening on the snout? Yeah, look closely and then look at the crank and look at the front snout. The front snout looks like 4-rib, not 6. And then look at the alternator. Look at that real closely. Power by the Hour, who's already looking to make brackets for it and stuff. They're like, oh my God, it's got like a 4-rib front belt. I could be wrong based on the pictures that we've seen, but it has it almost looks like some kind of, and Frank Perdomo is on answering questions. Maybe he can, for the people that are curious, ask Frank directly about what they see, because there is a funky thing going on the front sheath of that accessory drive that we hadn't seen before. So I thought it was pretty interesting.
What do you think it is?
So D-cell. I'm going based off nothing. D-cell. Remember when I was having issues every time I would let off the gas on my car and it would shred the belt because it heavily relied on the tensioner setup? I wonder if it has something to do with that. I don't know whether it would spin the opposite way, but it's less likely to, have any belt issues with that. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking it is 10 rib. We actually saw how wide. It's like an old GT500. The AC is massive. The pulley setup. It's on the rear sheath, which again, I always prefer, I know Whipple and Edelbrock and other manufacturers use the front, and I haven't really seen many issues with that. There's only one Supercharger, and we won't mention it, that has crank issues on the front sheath. None of them are positive displacement, by the way. So anyway,
I like their intercoolers
it was pretty. Yeah. No, see, we got to be careful. We got to be good. We tune them all. Boy, that guy today, I was like, thank God I got you involved, because I was like, I am losing my mind. I am legit losing my mind because, okay, real quick backstory. We're not going to mention the blower manufacturer or anything. I had a customer, and his fuel trims are 30% rich, and I'm like, at idle, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So then in the slow revs, it was 40% lean, and I went, okay, he's got something mechanically jacked. So after 3 or 4 tunes, I said, the results came back the same every single time. So then I reach out to Senior, because Junior makes the base files, and he can see something that I don't if I have an issue. Basically, it's like stepping up the chain of command. Say, hey man, take a look at this. What's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, the math, you need some math tweaks. And then he said the tune, and the exact same thing happened. And he's like, oh yeah, the kit sucks. And I was like, okay, at least I'm not crazy. So it was just a funny back and forth, because we did everything possible in our power and everything that we know to fix this setup. And it's just not being happy, and we can't remotely diagnose mechanical issues, but we know this setup it's not desirable tune-wise. So we did our best to get it done, and he's going to be close enough, and he'll be happy. He won't know the difference, but data-wise, we're just like, this is straight garbage. But we can't really tell the customer that. We just say, look, we're going to get you set up. It's going to run great. See you later. And as of now, he's happy. I haven't heard anything back from him, so hopefully he ends up working out. But back on this GT500
we won't
stuff.
have those problems.
So okay. Yeah, exactly. So color. Do we want to delve into the Instagram stuff and talk about color options for you guys? What are you gonna get? Are you gonna get the John Deere green, or the what is it called? The yellow? If GT500s come out in yellow, it's over. It's over. I mean, forget it. It should be dark, badass colors. Dark red, gray, blue, black, that no yellow.
Yeah,
Come on, guys.
We need pastel colors or orange.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty funny seeing everyone change the hue. Oh, this is the one. Oh, it looks pretty good. Even though that car they're actually changing the color in is $120,000 car or whatever it is, and I'm like, guys, you can't afford that. I'd get this
Frank
one.
Said Saints Gold. Man, that cuts so deep. That cuts so deep.
What happened?
He said Saints Gold.
Oh man, yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah, the Eagles. A lot of people think I'm a Patriots fan. Look, I was born and raised in Massachusetts, but I'm a 49er fan, so I don't care if the Pats win or not. So the Red Sox, that's a different story. But yeah, I'm sorry that your Eagles didn't show up. But
I'm
they
not
look good for a while.
You're gonna make me mad.
Okay. Do you want to answer any questions here? Do you anything else that you wanted to cover before we kind of get off the deep end? Because I'm sure it'll happen soon.
Well, the colors, I think Senior and I like silver with black stripes or silver with no stripes. We're a sucker for the dark gray. The blue is pretty cool. I like the orange. It's loud, and I just like orange. Orange and black looks pretty cool. I don't think I'd do red.
Yeah, you guys owned the Orange Fury 18.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. That car did look good.
It looks good. But the silver with no stripes or silver with black stripes, it looks like a jet fighter. So it'd be kind of cool to have it match his 14. So since it's silver.
Now the 14 has blue stripes, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll be an option.
That'd be cool.
I don't know.
If it is, maybe we can get it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
So you guys are going to get one. You're going to try to get it, and then we're going to try to get it. Okay, now, this is what I want to talk about. Okay, what are your thoughts about the AI system that Ford is implementing?
Is that the
constant communication with, Ford?
That they were talking about.
Yes.
It's kind of scary. It's kind of like Skynet is what we were talking about. I don't know if I'd really like people knowing where I'm going, kind of like it just gives people that bird's eye view that they don't need.
I don't like it because think about it. Let's say you're doing roll racing in Mexico and you're doing $180 and this thing is tracking everywhere you've been, how fast you're going. And let's say you take it in for service, right? Let's say you want an oil change. And they can keep a record of max mile per hour, max RPM, max load, because it's a constant data stream that they have access to, similar to, I don't know if North Star has I like how they sell it as, well, it's a wellness report. Well, we can monitor traffic. Well, we can, it's a data collecting. I don't like it at all. And I wonder if the Sync 3 is going to have anything to do with calibration or anything like that. Is it going to constantly read what's happening and see if anything is, it's like, wow, you guys are getting a little out there. A lot of people thought it'd be cool. People that don't tune or are not in the business, but we were just like, that's like Skynet, like legit Skynet
I'm
stuff.
wondering if, while the technology is cool, that they're able to do that, there must be some kind of drive behind it. And I hate to put the tinfoil hat on, but there's a lot of government regulation, and the EPA is heavily involved in dictating a lot of what car manufacturers can and cannot do. This could be something that is driven for them to be able to, the EPA is able to monitor what you do, collect data on the actual vehicles being driven on the road over a certain period of time, because then they can calculate emissions, like real, based on every vehicle. And then something else with the calibrations is also EPA related, and Senior's going to tell me to stop talking, but this is good talk. They're already doing this on the GMs. Pretty sure the new 19 ZR1 isn't cracked yet for tuning. Someone struggle busing it, and it's because it's heavily encrypted, and there's the over-the-air or OTA flashing on them, and apparently someone got able to change something, and immediately it was flashed back to OEM calibration.
Automatically? Whoa.
Yeah. So if they do that on the Shelby, obviously that's going to affect the aftermarket. So I'm hoping they don't go that way, but there's no telling.
I think Ford would be silly to do that for a couple of reasons. You want to showcase what this car can do, and who can do that better than the aftermarket? Ford is not going to ring it out and give you a car that's on the ragged edge. So they'll say, well, if you buy it and you see what others are doing in terms of going, well into the nines and, E85 and this and this and that, because at the end of the day, every guy that buys, whether it's a Roush RS3 or a GT500, they upgrade it pretty quickly, whether it's a cold air, a pulley, whatever. So if they started saying, oh, calibration is going to be, messed with or limited, then they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion, if they went that way.
They are, but at the same time, their hands may be tied, similar to
that's true.
How, our hands may eventually get tied with what we're allowed to do. If people are changing stuff and we're not allowed by their definition to shut things off that have nothing to do with the emissions output on the vehicle, then you're going to roll around with CELs all the time on your dash with things telling you about what you did wrong by the EPA. So, and you'll never pass an OBD to emissions. So exactly. Even though that isn't affecting the actual tailpipe emissions on the vehicle. So in some cases, what we're doing doesn't do any of that. So it's what the part is doing on the car. And that's the choice of the customer. So we're not going to get into politics of that, because that's neither here nor there, and we'll never win. So
right, exactly. No matter what you say, you're just not going to win that one. But I don't know. I just hope that it becomes tune friendly. I hope that the bottom end is stout. I hope. Oh, now what cylinder heads are on it? Is it a 15 Gen 2 style cylinder head? Or is it a GT350 style cylinder head?
It's Voodoo head. or a version of. Yeah. So
now there have been rumors that the Voodoo head doesn't have as much gasket surface for boost than a 15 head. Do you see that being an issue when it comes time to pulley down?
based on them revising the block, if they have a new block part number, I would assume they've recasted the head so that and made changes to that or that. So granted, there are some high horsepower cars rolling around with Voodoo heads on them. You know, they get the, you know, some of them have O-ring and, you know, 40 pounds of boost. So I don't know. I don't think it'll be a big issue. What I'm more interested in is what they're going to do with the cams, because GT350 has 14 millimeter lift and 270 duration, which that's a big cam.
It's a big cam.
It works well with a supercharger and turbos, and it drives pretty good. So will they keep those cams? I don't know. Will they do something bigger? I don't know. I kind of hope they keep the big lift because it likes air. So
exactly. I also saw that because I saw Steve Gellis, who now works for Long Tube Header. Congratulations. He ended up saying, and he was kind of an advocate of DCT. Now, don't get me wrong. DCT is cool. I don't know that it's the future, but I think it's very cool. Don't think that Ford won't offer, in my opinion, a manual option for this car. The TR6070 is in C7 Z06s. I don't see, because look, there's going to be a lot of people already there are a bunch of people complaining that it doesn't have a traditional manual, transmission. And if I'm in that realm, right? If I'm in that $100,000, because let's be honest, I think it's going to be a high 5-figure, potentially low 6-figure car when it comes out. Dealer markup. I don't know if I want an H pattern transmission in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's almost like if I'm going to pay $60, $70, $80, $90,000 for a car, why shouldn't it have the same transmission GTRs, some Audis, and Porsches have? I'm kind of befuddled why some people are like, it doesn't have a H pattern manual, and I'm like, at that price range and at that echelon, I don't know if it should. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I don't know if I'd want it with a manual in it. Mainly because of what we plan on doing with it, and I want it to be as quick as possible. And a DCT will be quicker than a manually shifted manual transmission, because now you have a manual transmission being automatically shifted, so it's going to be quicker than the human. So, then, and that goes back to, I think you and I talked about this, manual versus real auto. Well, you've always said a properly shifted manual will be quicker than a planetary style automatic, and you're exactly right.
Right.
Mechanically, everything's quicker, so ET goes down. That's why GTRs are quick, and all the really, really fast stuff, they run those Liberty transmissions. So they're not running a Turbo 400 or a Power Glide. Granted, those cars go really fast, but the really fast ones run the more expensive transmission.
So now you have been lucky enough, because I think, you're the lead calibrator of Lund Racing, and you're privy to information that most of us aren't. You have seen a manual transmission with a torque converter. So the torque converter, meaning it's the propulsion source. Basically, that's what's attached to the engine. What do you think about that setup? Is that an auto? Because it's a legit torque converter with like a manual gear set behind it.
That's the one that Tony's doing on the GTR.
See, you're privy to information that we're not.
Well, it's public, but it's that is the ultimate. So now you have he's taking what was in the GTR with the manual auto, the DCT. He's improving on it with better, even stronger, better technology with the Liberty Trans, and now it has that quick drive system with the converter on it. So now he basically has something where, and it's got a dump valve, and he can come up on a 2-step and launch it off a trans brake, and that is basically someone slipping the clutch on a manual transmission out of the hole, but he has tunability with it. So now he can go in, and with that dump valve, he can control the rate of the converter coming out of the hole for optimal traction. So basically, he wants to optimize every inch of the 1320 in order to go as fast and quick as possible. And he's doing it right. It's expensive, but that's the ultimate. I just say it's called a transmission. That's the transmission.
Exactly. That's one of those things where you're like, okay, that's like its own thing. It doesn't really fall into any category. And when you're in the GTR world, that's kind of like what you do. It's like who can outdo each other, and he's kind of going for like swinging for the fences. He's like, I'm going to go all the way. Screw it.
Well,
this is what it is.
You saw that one. I think it was over overseas in the Middle East. Some white GTR went 658 at 230.
Yes.
With.
Didn't it look slow? Like, didn't the run look slow to you? And then you're like, holy crap, it went well into the sixes.
When I look at the run and I look at the time slip, the 60 foot, it's like, the 118. I mean, that's fast. It's quick, but for that power level, you're kind of like, it should be quicker, and that's why it looks slow. You're thinking to yourself, it's making over 3,000 horsepower. So then you're like, then you look at the time slip, and I think it did over 180 in the eighth mile, and I'm like, and then it did 50 mile an hour back half. So the pickup, I know, I'm like, what? Like,
what does that feel like?
And he did that with a DCT. So, and something else to bring up is those guys, I'm pretty sure they still run the OEM TCM for that transmission, and they run a aftermarket engine management. Wow.
So that's the other question. Is the GT500 going to have a TCM?
Yeah, it'll be like the diesels with a TCM and a PCM, or the 17 F-150 3.5s. They have both, and then in I think in 18 they still have them separate. But the 2.7 EcoBoost is all one PCM. I don't know why they changed it. Yeah. Yeah.
So theoretically, let's talk theory and talk out of our asses for a second. Can you swap something that has a TCM into like a, let's say, Gen 2 car, a 15 car? Can you flash the TCM separate from the main computer and still have adjustability? Or is that something that you're going to have to flash two different things, two different tunes, two different strategies for everything? Meaning, can I swap a DCT? Because this is the next question, right? Can I swap a DCT in my Gen 2?
No, it won't. I think there'll be another module that says, hey, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with it. The PCM, the Gen 2 PCM, I don't, unless we can standalone flash both, I don't know. Now you got me thinking.
Because we get those questions all the time, right? And Power by the Hour is kind of like one of those guys that's like, why can't we do it? Let's try it. Let's just do dumb shit. Now, a lot of people ask, why can't you swap a 10R80 into a car that had a 6R80? Well, you can't. You can't. Can you? Like, is it possible to 10R, with the tri-core from a 10R80, like an 18 Mustang auto, control a 10R80 in a Gen 2? If it can, why? If it can't, why? Because that's the question people say. I want to get a 10R80 in my Gen 2 because I hear it's badass. Why can't we do that?
Well, the PCM, Gen 2 PCM will not control the 10R80 at all. There's no provision for it in the calibration. Very complex. So you can't make a 6R80 to work a 10R80. So you'd have to use the new Gen 3 PCM, and in order to swap that, you would have to turn off or reprogram PATs for the security stuff.
Gotcha.
And then if you do that, you have to go into the PCM and shut off the direct injection and hope everything stays hunky-dory. So, yeah.
Because a lot of people think, why can't I just put it in? I'm going to 10R80 swap it. Well, how the hell are you going to do that? Like, how exactly are you going to do that? Well, I just will. And then when they buy all the parts without even asking, this is the leads to asking us questions
Right.
before you buy parts. We get this a lot where people say, I have a 10R80, send me a tune. I'm like, for what? Like a 10R80 in a Gen 2 or even a Gen 1. I'm like, why'd you do that?
Well, I thought it'd work.
Yeah, and they don't ask their
Yeah.
tuner first, where they could save a ton of money and time if you get with us beforehand. That's what Nardi's there for. And if Nardi doesn't know, he'll ask you. And if you don't know, you'll ask Senior and, move up the chain. But 9 times out of 10, there's certain things that just can't be swapped. Like Gen 2 is pretty badass in my opinion. That's still the go-to combo in my opinion when it comes to going fast now. If you want to go 8s now, Gen 2 is where it's at. If you don't mind a bit of an older operating system or an older setup, Gen 1 still is pretty stout. You can still go well into the 8s with, the components that are out there. But the Gen 3, someone made a wall meme or a wall thing where it's like they made the wall with just Gen 3 engines because there's been so many engine ticking noises and everything, and I've experienced it firsthand. And you've, hear about it all the time about the engine just isn't there yet for whatever reason. It's just the liners, the spray liners, the piston slab. Where do you think Ford's going to end up with all that stuff? Do you think there'll be a recall? You think they're just going to ride out and ride the storm until it kind of dissipates? What do you think is going to end up with all that?
If they have enough failures, they'll probably do. I don't know. I mean, they have to have a plan. They have to have something to. In order to do a recall, they got to have a bunch of parts ready to drop in, and swapping an engine isn't like taking, like my truck needs the door handles swapped out because they stick in the wintertime, and it's a recall. Like the time spent to do that is going to be much different than, doing the engine. So the labor is different, and I don't know if they're going to want to lose all that money on both getting blocks manufactured and installing in everybody's Mustang. So they're probably going to just keep replacing them, like they've been telling people, just ride it out till it blows. And then hopefully in 2020, they have already manufactured a bunch of blocks they plan on putting in and that don't have the spray liner that like comes off like pixie dust. And
is that what it is? Basically, the spray liner on the bores is what's causing premature wear of the cylinders?
I think it may be a combination of trueness in the bore, and the spray liner comes off, and you get pieces that go in between the piston and the wall, and it creates like a sandpaper effect. Eventually, you get a bunch of heat. That's all the scuffing. Scuffing, and that also, if the scuffing's from the cylinder not being round, then that also can do that. And eventually, you have pistons that get hot and they just break. So, we got the 2-minute warning.
We got the warning. Okay, so if there's anything you want to say, just go ahead and blurt it out. If you want to answer some questions or thank the people.
I've been answering while we've been talking by typing some. Someone said built 3160s are out there that make 900 plus. Is that the 350 transmission?
Yeah, they'll make it in gear, but the gear change is when the problem occurs.
The gear ratios in that transmission aren't really favorable for much. I remember the first gear being really long in that transmission.
Go like 60 in first. I was like, what is this? I mean, it's cool.
Someone
but it's
said
not.
the 5.2 liter and the GT500 has spray liners too. They do, but it's different. So they did I don't know the technical name, but they did it different on the 18. And according to an engine builder, they didn't prep the block properly for it, and that's why they're having issues. So the 5.2 GT350 and the 5.0, the Gen 2 motors don't have issues with the spray liner. Someone says Explorer ST tuning for Lund. I mean, if we can get one, yeah. But if it's got that autonomous stuff on it, the flashback.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to phone home. No, someone said Explorer XC needs to be released first.
Yeah,
exactly.
I guess I should tune an EcoBoost 10R80 Mustang first.
No, just bypass it. Let someone else have it. We get like one a week, if that.
Yeah. Well.
And if you guys get them, I don't get them.
We have 15 seconds left, so I guess we will say bye to everybody. Yeah.
We'll call it. Yes, sir. All right, we'll do it again soon, man. We'll try to make it a weekly thing. We'll try to, get going on it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me,
I'll
brother.
talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you later.